What's up guys, this is Casey bringing you another Blender tutorial. Some of you guys may be thinking to yourselves, hey, I'm pretty sure I saw this tutorial on your page earlier. Or some of you may be saying, hey, I already watched this video, why are you putting this up again? Well, apparently I did not watch far enough into the video before I posted it, and there is all kinds of video issues, and apparently this, the material preview was just making my computer run super slow and my video kept crashing, so like half of the video is not there. So I'm redoing it. I don't want you guys to be super confused or anything like that. So hopefully this one will work better, and I will not be using this preview menu for this one because that really messed me up. So if you guys didn't believe that I had a slow computer before, ha 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 ha, now you know. Anyways, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be making a rocky mountain sort of landscape, but more importantly, we're talking about complex materials today. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started by deleting our cube by hitting X, delete. Now up here in your file menu, we need to go to User Preferences. Click on your Add-ons tab. I'm already there. And go to our Add Mesh category. Right here you will see Add Mesh Ant Landscape. This should be in most of the newer versions of Blender. If you don't have it, try and download the newest version of Blender, because installing it as a separate add-on is a little confusing if you're new to Blender, that sort of thing. Anyways, make sure that you have the little checkbox checked next to Add Mesh Ant Landscape, save your user settings, and then we can close the menu. So we now need to add that landscape by hitting Shift A, Mesh Landscape, down at the bottom. And there's our little landscape. It looks like a little tiny anthill or something. So we're going to make that a little bit bigger. Do not, under no circumstances, do not change your mountain in any way without using this menu. Don't grab it, don't resize it, don't rotate it, don't touch it. Because if you touch it, then this menu goes away, you have to re-add the mesh. Just a fair warning for you guys right now. Okay, so right here we have this little mesh size option. That's where we can actually scale this. So let's go with 8. Then we can go down here to noise size, and I believe 2 is about what we're looking for. We might have to increase that a bit, but we'll see. Next we need to go to our plateau settings, and I'm just going to set that to 3. That's going to allow me to raise the height. The height, usually if it goes past 1, it's going to start flattening out at the top. That's what the plateau is. Not really important because this is more about the materials than the actual modeling. Hopefully you guys understand that. If I'm going a little quick through this, it is because this is about the materials, not the actual modeling. You could really, honestly, you could make this landscape any way that you want. That's the beauty of these landscapes. You can do whatever you want with them. And it's just going to be more about the materials. Yeah, I'm going to have to bring the noise size out. Definitely. Bring it all the way out. You know what, let's just top it off at 3.02 noise size. So we should be looking fairly good. Okay. Alright, so normally you would go to your subdivision tab up here at the top of your landscape menu. Mine says 64, I believe that's the default. Normally you would want to raise this to something pretty high, something like 160, maybe even 200, to get a really detailed mesh. However, my computer, obviously very slow, so I'm going to keep mine at 64. If you want yours to look really good, raise it up. Just remember, however much you raise it up, that's how slow your computer's going to run. So just be aware that this is going to affect the rest of your project working. Okay, so I think I am pretty much set up here, and I'm going to now click on my mountain and rotate it on the Z-axis by -90. That's going to make it face towards the front view. And you can see that my menu is now gone. Even if I Control Z and get rid of all the stuff that I just did, that menu will go away. So that's why I said do not move the menu. Hopefully you did not move the menu. I'm looking at you, guy who moved the menu. Okay, so anyways, now I need to set up my camera. So I'm just getting kind of close to my mountain, something like this, and then I'm going to hit Control-Alt-0 on my numpad, and that brings my camera right to my location. Now I'm going to go on my Z-axis down. I'm going to actually go way down. I'm going to rotate it on the X-axis and face it upwards just a bit like this. Now I want to turn on my rule of thirds, which is under my little camera tab. And in composition, I'm turning on thirds. This is going to give me kind of an idea of where I want my picture's focus to be. So I need this to come, actually, let me go on the X-axis here, pull down on the Z, and rotate it, not on the Z, rotate it on the X-axis. Let's rotate it up. Let's rotate it, I did it again. Rotate it on the X-axis. No. Yeah, rotate it on the X-axis. Pull it up a little bit more so that I can pull it down on the Z-axis like this. Okay, so if you don't know anything about rule of thirds, I would highly suggest that you go to Google, look it up, research it a little bit. It's a very complicated, well, it's not that complicated, but it's a photographic technique that kind of draws focus from one area to another upon first looking at the picture. So the way I have it set up is the objects close to the camera are focused right on this intersection, and the objects away from the camera are focused on this intersection. So we're getting a nice flow from sort of the bottom left of the image to the top right of the image. Obviously, like I said, this isn't supposed to be about the modeling or a final project. It's more about the materials. So if you just want to set up a camera that looks at your mountain and say forget it to the rest of it, then yeah, by all means go right ahead. Okay, so real quick, I just want to go into my sculpt mode, and I want to do a quick couple adjustments. Increase my brush size. I just want to like smooth this out at the bottom, the base, just a little bit. Maybe a little bit more than that. Go right about in here. Start smoothing it out. See if I can't smooth. There we go. There we go. That's looking nice. And I'm gonna go You know, I'm afraid clay isn't gonna work, so let's do grab instead. I just want to kind of grab some of these little pieces here, make them look a little bit more bumpy, a little bit more rocky, pull them up just a bit. Hopefully that's not wicked crazy here. No. Okay. That looks pretty good. So with that, there's one more thing that we should do. Let's go to our modifier tab, add modifier, subdivision surface. That's just going to really smooth the landscape out quite a bit. It makes it look a lot less like a CG image, a little bit more like an actual mountain. I wonder if I can pull this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Alright. Oh, okay. Okay, I swear. I'm done this time. I'm done. Okay. Object mode. And the last thing that we need to do is we need to actually adjust our lamp. We're going to make that into a sun lamp by hitting a sun button. Use nodes, set the strength to 3. And I'm just going to pull it over here, rotate it around, pull it down just a bit, rotate there, and we should be good. Alright, so now we should be good. We should be ready to move on to the actual materials. Let me move this down just a bit. Alright, so I'm going to click on my mountain, and I'm going to go to the Materials tab and add a brand new material. Material.001. Probably not going to keep that material. I just wanted to add a material on there. We will use it later, more than likely. So let me go to my node editor, and this is what the node setup looks like right here. Very basic. However, it's not the nodes that we're going to be using. I have some materials already set up for this project. I'm going to click on File, Append, and I'm going to where's it at? Blend Files, and it's in my material library under Material, and it is Rock Procedural. So now over here in my Materials tab, I'm going to change it from Material 1 to Rock Procedural. This is what my procedural rock material looks like. Now every material that I'm using today is available on my website for download at caseyunderhill.com. I'll put the link in my video description. If you're interested, you can always go to my website and download the materials plus a bunch of extra materials that are pre-made and ready to go. However, I understand most of you guys will probably not want to do that. You'll probably want to make this yourself, and I would explain how to make this, except last time I did this video it took me 51 minutes and 45 seconds, and that was without explaining any of this stuff. So hopefully I can make this one just a little bit shorter. However, I will do this flyby of my material setup so that you guys, if you want to, can pause the video and take a look at it and try to set it up yourself. So I'm just going to kind of go piece by piece, block by block, so that you can kind of see what it's made up of, how I made it. And if you, like I said, if you want to pause the video at each different step and kind of pop in the nodes and pop in the numbers and settings, you are more than welcome to do so. Let me get these ones in there so you can see where that goes. And zoom out. And zoom out again. And zoom out one more so you can get the whole picture. Okay, we should be good on the flyby for that. So, that is our rock texture. Now I know from experience that I'm going to have to change the scale of this to 2. So I've set all of the scales to 2, and it will make it look just like rocks. I would like to show you guys how it actually looks. You know what? Let's do it. Forget it. Hopefully, my video is going to slow down. I'm just warning you right now. It's going to slow. Let me go to my render view. Okay, so my video is probably frozen right now. You probably can hear me, but you won't see my mouse cursor moving. But if you look at the mountain landscape, it looks very, very rocky and rough, which is okay for mountains, but it looks very uniform for mountains. We want it to look something a little bit different than this. We want it to be more interesting. So let me switch back to my solid view and give it a couple seconds. Hopefully the video capture will catch up with me. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, hopefully it is caught up. So basically, we have to have a little bit of snow on the top of the mountains. We need to have some grass at the base of the mountain, and maybe some grass patches just kind of placed around the mountain, because mountains aren't completely rock. They usually have some weeds and some grass and some trees, and they have snow on the top if it's a really big mountain, and we're pretending that this is a big mountain. So that's basically what we're going to do, and we're going to do it all with one material. We're starting with our rock procedural, and we're just going to keep adding to it. So the next thing that we're going to add is actually our snow material. Before we actually do the materials, we need to add a vertex color. So if we click on our mountain, we go to our object mode button down here, and we click on Vertex Paint. That's going to bring up this little paint menu over to the left. Now if your mountains aren't completely white, you have to make sure that you're set all the way up to white over here in your left toolbar, and then click Paint, set vertex colors, and that will set everything to white. Likewise, if you would like it all to be black and do this all in reverse for no apparent reason, you could change it to black and set vertex colors to black. But I'm going to do white, so I don't know why I even told you that. Anyways, so now that it's all white, I'm going to change my brush to black, and I'm just going to basically start painting where I want the snow to be on the peaks of my mountains. Just like this. And I don't want there to be too much, but I don't want there to be too little, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. Too much is going to make the top of your mountain look weird. It's just going to look unnatural. But too little, and it's just going to look too rocky again. So we want to find a bit of a happy medium. Maybe just a little bit more right in there. Maybe just a little bit down the side. Right in there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Obviously, being a 3D model, we need to make sure we're hitting this from all angles. So let's grab it from the back side a little bit. We don't have to worry about the back side too much. We just want to make sure that any like big holes and crevices, things like that, that might be caught in the picture, we just want to make sure that those are filled. Like this. Okay, so got all switched around on me. Okay, so obviously we've got a couple of little mistakes here. No big deal. We'll just change our brush back to white, and we'll just paint over our little mistakes. Paint right over those mistakes. And over that mistake there, like that. Okay, so now if we look at this, you can see that there are a couple places where there's like some hard lines. You might have even rougher lines. Most of the time mine doesn't come out looking this smooth. Usually it looks really pixelated. Like here's some on the side, it just looks kind of like rough line, pixelated, all that good stuff. So there is a way to fix that. All we have to do is go down to our paint menu, smooth vertex colors. And just like that, all those rough lines are smoothed out. Okay, so now the next thing we have to do is go to our little vertex tab over here, and you will see underneath vertex colors that it added a new one called COL. That's the default name for your color vertex, whatever, vertex color vertex vertices. Anyways, we're going to rename that. We're going to rename it to snow. It's important to remember exactly how you spelled this and exactly where you put a capital letter and all of that, because once we use it in a material, it's going to have to match this name exactly this, or it's not going to work. So make it something easy to remember. If you guys are not from the US and you want to call it something, whatever your native country calls snow, that's cool. Just remember, you have to know that name for later. Okay, so we can go back to our object mode, and now we can go back to our, let's go back to our node editor. And now we need to actually add our snow material. So I'm going to go File, Append, and I'm going to Snow Pro. That means procedural. And in my Materials tab, in order to actually append this snow into this one, I think there's an easier way of doing this, but I don't remember it, so I'm going to do the longer way. I'm just going to hit the plus sign over here to make a brand new material, and I'm going to change it to Snow Pro. So this is my snow material. Again, I'm going to do a quick flyby so that if you guys want to pause the video and take a look at it and copy it, make your own, you can do that. In the same light, if you're really not interested in making your own or copying mine or any of that kind of stuff, then you can always, for snow, honestly, you can pretty much just kind of put in a white diffuse if you want to. It won't look quite as good as this, but it'll still look okay, I guess. So either way, again, this is available on my website, plus a bunch more materials that you can use if you want. If you want, you don't have to. So there we go, that's our snow material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to box select this by hitting B, clicking and dragging, select the whole thing. Now just like you're making a Word document, we're going to hit Control C to copy it, go back to our rock procedural, and hit Control V to paste it. Obviously it pasted it in a weird position, so we're going to have to hit G to grab it, and we're just going to move it down here kind of out of the way. Alright, so now we have both our rock material and our snow material, and we have two material outputs, which is a no-no. We can't have two material outputs. No. That's bad, very bad. So let's get rid of the one on the snow material, deleting that one, and I'm going to pull our material output here outwards, like that. So now the object here is that we need to basically use rock materials where we have white colors in our Vertex paint, and we need our snow material where we have our black color in our Vertex colors. So in order to do that, we need to actually mix our shaders. Since we don't want to mess with the actual materials of either of these, then we need to mix our shaders. So add shader, mix shader. And I'm just going to plug it right in here, and I'm going to drag the output from my color of my snow into the bottom. So now we have it mixed, but that's not quite what we wanted. We want obviously to be affected by our Vertex colors. So we need to add an input attribute node, and it's going to ask for a name. Now this attribute node can come in handy for a lot of different reasons, like changing vertex layers and things like that. But in this instance, we're going to use our vertex color node, or our vertex color group, whatever you want to call it, which is named snow. So let's type that in, snow. And we're just going to take the color output of our attribute node and plug it right into the factor of our mix shader. Now I think I have these backwards. I think the white and the black are switched, so I'm just going to switch these two like that, and now it should be working. I guess I can show you. It's going to slow my video down, but we'll get through this. We'll get through this together. Okay, so once again, I'm sure you can hear my voice, but you cannot see my mouse cursor moving. Hopefully it is rendered just enough for you to see basically what we have. We should have the snow on the top of the mountain. We should have the rocks on the rest of the mountain, which is exactly what we're looking for. And it looks pretty good. There's a couple more things that we still need to do. So I'm going to go back to my node editor, and I'm going to mess around and talk to you guys for a couple seconds while my video catches back up, hopefully. So yeah, what are you guys doing today? How are you? Did you have a good day? Did you have a good day at school? Okay, hopefully my video is caught up. Alright, so anyways, now that we have the colors working properly, you can see that we have a bump. It's not really a bump, it's actually a displacement for the snow down here at the bottom. Now originally it was plugged into the displacement of our material output. However, we have now hit a weird kind of wall where we want our snow displacement to be only on the snow parts and not on the rock parts. But we have to plug it into the displacement of the material output for everything. So if you guys are still following along at all, because it's starting to get a little confusing, we need to do a little bit of refiguring here. So let's go to add color, mix RGB. Now this should be the way to solve this. If we plug in the output for our displacement into the top part of our mix node, our color mix node, and I'm just going to pull this up by the displacement, and then I want to change my color to pure white. displacement maps work based on black and white. So black colors are going to make like an indentation, or yeah, it should make like an indentation or pull it out of your mesh. And white colors basically do nothing. It just makes your mesh look like normal. So hopefully, if we can mix this, if we can mix our snow displacement with white based on our attribute node, which is our color, our vertex color, we should have just our snow displacement being input into our displacement, and white in all of the places that we do not have black colors on our vertex color node. Boy, that's hard to even describe. I hope you guys are not completely lost, because that's a little rough. But hear me out, because we're just going to connect the color output of our attribute node now into the factor value of our mix node. And now we can place that right into our displacement, and we should be good. So, in order to test, in order to check, we have to go back. We have to go back to our 3D view. Okay, so you guys should still be hearing my voice, but I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor moving. I don't know if this thing is rendering for you guys yet or not. I have no idea. I do not have two computer screens. I can't see both my video output and my Blender screen at the same time. Hopefully I have talked long enough to let you guys see that it has rendered, and you can now see that we have our rock displacement with our rocks without the snow displacement, and we have snow displacement on our snow, and everything is coming together like a beautiful work of art, a masterpiece on a canvas. Yay! Okay, so we can go back to our node editor. And now we have to stall for a couple of seconds here. Hopefully my video editor will catch up with me. So what'd you guys eat for dinner today? Maybe it's morning for you guys. I don't know. Most of you guys are like not in the States. You guys aren't in USA, so I don't know. What's the time difference out there where you guys are? Yeah, really? That's cool. Okay, so anyways, we are now on to our next part, which is going to be adding in our grass. Ah, crap. You know what? We got to go back to our 3D view. Okay, bear with me here, guys. Bear with me. Switching to my solid view, and I am giving it a couple seconds. Hopefully my video capture will catch up with me. Okay, here we go. And hopefully it is good. Okay, so we need to unwrap this object. I completely forgot. I should have done this in the beginning, but we definitely need to unwrap it. So I'm going to tab into my edit mode, hit my U button, and unwrap. The way that it unwraps is not especially important, so you don't have to do any fancy seams or anything like that. We just want to make sure that it gets a decent it just has to get an unwrap where you're not going to see a lot of seams, which shouldn't be a problem, but just saying. Just make sure if you look at it in your camera view and it looks like you've got seams, you might have to re-unwrap it. Anyways, we have now unwrapped it. So we need to actually add a brand new vertex color. So over here, we are in our vertex tab. And vertex colors, we need to hit the little plus sign. And we're going to change the name of this one to grass. Just like that. Now, if we go to our vertex color, or vertex paint, I mean, you will see, even though we are selected grass, it is still showing our snow colors, which is fine. When you create a brand new vertex color group, it's going to copy the colors from your first color node, or color group. Man, I can't stinking talk today. Ugh. Anyways, the way that we fix this is to go make sure our brush is all the way set on white, paint, and set vertex colors. So now if we click on snow, you can see that we still have our mountain peaks colored, but if we click on grass, it is completely empty, which is what we want, because now we need to change our brush to black, and we need to paint where we want large patches of grass, which is pretty much going to be right here on the base. So I'm just going to color around the top part here. Color around in here, right in there, like this. Color around the side, swing around the bend. And we'll go right back in here, color this in, maybe get a little bit of patched grass over there. And something like that. Maybe take some of this out. I don't know. Just get a couple of patches in there. Yeah, see? Okay. So now make sure that you go to Paint, Smooth Vertex Colors. Make sure it's nice and smooth, or at least more smooth than it was. And we should be ready to move on to our actual materials for our grass. So back to object mode and back to our node editor. So I know what you're thinking, Casey, we already have snow down here and we have our rocks up here and things are getting crazy. How are we going to add in grass? Well, let's take a minute. Let's just let's calm down. Let's calm down. No screaming, no yelling. Okay. Now that you're calm, let's just take this slow, and we're going to clean this up a little bit, okay? All right, so let's add in a layout frame. Now you can see that my snow material here already has two frames. I have color and bump. We're going to add in one more frame to that group, so I'm going to box select all of these. And then I'm going to shift select my frame and control P. That's going to parent the frame to those nodes. So now if I click on just my frame and hit G to grab, you can see that it moves all of those nodes together, which is very awesome. Now over here in our properties toolbar, if you don't have this properties toolbar, you might need to hit the N key. But you can label it. So let's label this snow. And I'm going to change that label size to something easier to read, 40. And I'm going to change the color. Let's get it something cool. Snow. Cool colors. Yeah, see what I did there? Okay, so now we have all of, what did I do? I hit N. There we go. So now I'm going to add another layout frame, and I want to select all of this like that. I do not want my attribute node in there, so I'm going to pull that out. Select my frame, Control P, and now I can grab that and pull this back a little bit so that's not in the mess, and we can label that. So this is our rocks. Set that up to 40. We'll leave it gray, obviously. Rocks are gray. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so now the only thing that doesn't have a frame is our little mix shader, our attribute node, and our mix shader here, or I guess it's not a mix shader, it's a color mix node that we have for our displacement. So now it becomes a lot easier to deal with, right? Now you can kind of see what you're looking at. It's just so much easier. It's so much easier this way. Frames can definitely save your life when you're working on big projects like this. Also, doing node groups can save your life. But we're not going to do node groups this time because that's another tutorial. Okay, so we need to add our actual grass. Obviously, we unwrapped, so we're going to need a texture, an image texture. Texture, image texture. And we'll plop that in here. And I'm going to open texture. It's underneath grunge for some reason. And I have moss0177_2_s. You can get that at cgtextures.com. It's free. You can download it, or you can just find a picture of grass or moss or mold. Something that's green. I like this picture because it's got like some browns added in it, like some rocky looking browns, and I like that. I don't know why, it looks good. So anyways, not important. We have our image right here. So obviously this image is going to be probably really big, so we're going to definitely need to add a vector mapping node and connect that. Whoop. Connect that in here, and then we have to add in a input texture coordinate and select the UV output into our mapping node. Okay, getting closer now. So the scale on this, if I remember correctly, needs to be something pretty large. For my project, it might be different for your project. I think it was something like 10 for each. Whoops, not 101. 10, there we go. Alright, so now we actually need something to output this image texture to. Normally I would say to just mix the image texture with like a color mix node and mix it in with like the rocks, something like that. But we don't want to mess with these. These are already exactly the way that we want them. So we don't want to mess with those as much as possible. So since we have a bunch of shaders down here, let's just give this a shader output by going to shader, diffuse, and plugging the color into the diffuse shader. Now to add a little bit of realism to this, we're going to give it its own bump map. So let's add vector bump, plug the color into the height, and the normal into the normal. Okay, so we pretty much have our grass set up. So since we have it set up, let's go ahead and add in a frame. Layout frame, and then we will select all of our grass nodes, parent it to our frame. Let's label that to grass and give it a 40 label size, and we're going to make this a nice grass color. That's right, pink. Okay, so now we have our grass sitting up here. Now we just need to basically mix our grass with the rest of our image. So we don't have to worry about this. This is our displacement, so we're just worried about this one right here. So let's add in a shader, mix shader, and plop it right in there. So this has our snow and our rocks on it. This one has our grass. So in this one, our black output is actually the top and our white is the bottom. So our black is the top, that is our grass. So we need to take our diffuse output, plug it into the top, and this one goes right into the bottom. And now we just need to duplicate our attribute node one more time. And we're going to rename that to our vertex color group of grass. Plug that right into the factor value, and if all has gone perfectly, if the heavens have aligned, we should have a somewhat decent looking image. Do we dare go back to our 3D view? Let's do it. Oh yeah, I gotta go to my rendered view. Rendered view. Aha! Yay! We're looking good. Woohoo! So, obviously, again, you guys can probably hear my voice. You can't see my computer moving. Oh, this is a pain. Anyways, we should have exactly what we were looking for. We have our snow caps on the top of our mountains. We have rocks in the middle, and we have grass right at the base of our mountain, which is great. That's exactly what we're looking for. Our grass has its own bumps that is not any way attached to our rocks. Our rocks have their own bumps, and our snow has its own displacement. So it's looking really good. However, the rocks still look just a little too uniform. We need those extra like patches of grass that are going to kind of just disperse around the mountain, just in patches. It's really hard to explain. But that's pretty much how it's going to be. It's just in patches. So I'm going to go back to my node editor. And we're going to give it a couple seconds to try and catch up with me here. Okay, okie dokie, okie dokie. Hopefully, it is caught up. Give it another second. Give it one more second. Okay, so hopefully it's caught up. Alright, so if we're going to make the grass become patchy around the rest of the rocks, around the rest of the mountains, obviously we're going to need to find a way to make another vertex color. But we don't want to do this by hand. You could do it by hand if you really wanted to, if you wanted to be real precise in your placement of the patches. You could do another vertex color group, or you could simply add to your grass color group. I don't want to do that though. I want this to be random. I want it to be sort of randomly generated. So the way I'm going to do that is with a noise texture. So I'm going to add in texture, noise texture, right there. And I'm going to drag the object output from my texture coordinate, and you can drag the object output from any texture coordinate. I'm just grabbing from the closest one. I'm going to plug it into the vector. And now we need to add a couple more things. So this is going to be, we're going to add in a converter color ramp and plug the color into that. And we should be pretty much set up. That's not too much, it's not too difficult. You could add a mapping node if you wanted to. You could add a couple more noise textures and make it even crazier, or mix it with like a musgrave texture. That'd be really cool. But I'm sure this tutorial has gone on long enough. I've probably lost 90% of you. Actually, 90% of you probably looked at these other materials that I said, hey, you can go to my website and you can get these materials at my website. And you guys were like, no, I'm just going to turn this one off. So anyways, for the sake of simplicity for this tutorial, we're not going to add too much more to this. However, you could. I understand that. You don't have to comment at me and tell me that I could have added a lot more, made it look cool. I know that. Anyways, so we need to mess with this color ramp a little bit. It can get a little tricky to make it look right. So in order to do that, we have our Snow Pro up over here already. I'm just going to delete that one actually and add in a new material. And I'm just going to go back to this blank material that I have that is just a diffuse shader and a material output. Okay. So I'm just going to select that noise texture and my color ramp, and I'm going to hit Control C, go down to that new material, and Control V, just to pop them in, and they're all the way over there. So let's pull that in over here, and we're just going to plug that in right there. Okay, so now, unfortunately, I have to click on Preview, or else I'm not going to know what I'm doing. So hopefully it does not ruin my video capture. Preview. I'm gonna go to plane. Okay. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Hopefully it didn't load super slow. I hope it's not killing you. Okay. So anyways, the basic idea behind a noise texture, let me plug the noise texture directly into the diffuse. And you can see that it looks pretty much just like, I don't know, a bunch of rainbows, like somebody like threw up rainbows on a canvas or something. However, if we run it through our color ramp, it automatically turns it into a black and white image, which is what we want. However, we don't want all this gray. When we're doing a factor input to actually mix two colors together, we really don't want a gray area. We want more whites and more blacks. So I'm just going to pull this white in and pull the black in, and you'll see that it starts to harden up a little bit. You start getting more brighter kind of whites in here, start getting more patches of black. That's what we're looking for. So we're just going to keep pulling these in until we start getting more and more whites and blacks. something. Ooh, that's pretty close actually. Let's just pull this out just a little bit, maybe. A little bit more. And then pull this in that way. Aha. Pull that back a little bit, like that. I think that's about right. Might need to change the scale of this a little bit. Maybe a 6. Might be too small. We'll see. So hopefully you guys saw kind of what I did there, and my video capture software did not crash out on me or something. So basically I'm just moving these sliders on my color ramp. Let me get rid of this. Oop, not that. This. I move the sliders on my color ramp towards each other, and it brings, instead of having lots of gray areas, we now get complete black and white. Now there is, I understand there's going to be somebody in the comments that's going to say this, that you can change this from linear to constant and you will get nothing but blacks and whites. But I feel like you don't get as much control. I like to still have a little bit of soft edges around it, not too much, just a little bit. So that's the reason we kept it to linear. Okay, so we basically know what we're looking for. So first of all, we need to change our noise texture scale to 6. So back up to rock procedural, and let's find that color ramp and scale to 6. Now we have over here, this is our white position is at 0.564. 0.564. So white, 0.564. Now we need our black position, which is 0.409. So let's go back over here and go 0.409. And just like that, without messing with any of these other materials, I was able to basically preview what that color ramp is going to look like. So now I can get rid of this material over here, delete that, and we're back to our rock procedural. Okie dokie. Okay, so basically now what we're going to do is we're going to mix again with the rest of our shaders. So let's mix shader, mix it in here, and we're going to use this color ramp as the factor output. This. And since we want the black parts to be grass, I guess it doesn't matter too much, but I'm going to put this down here, and then we're going to grab our grass, diffuse, output once more, plug it into the top. Now there is one other way that you can do this if you don't want to put this mix shader at the end. You could mix it up here with this diffuse shader, but it doesn't matter. Either way, pretty much the same. Okay, so we should be done. Hopefully. Hopefully, we're done. Hopefully. So, as you can see, we have our grass at the top, our rocks in the middle, our snow at the bottom, and then our big jumbled mess up here of mixers and shaders. But when you get down to it, it's not that difficult. We have 1, 2, 3 mix shaders, and we have 1, 2, 3 factors that are going into the mix shaders. This is obviously our displacement. And we're basically just mixing each one of these colors. I mean, it's really simple. These frames can really help you a lot, just to kind of keep the clutter and the mess contained so that you know what you're looking at. Or so if I save this file and come back to it in 3 years, I don't have to guess. I don't have to look at a giant thing of a mess and be like, I don't know where this one ends and this one begins. Let me start at the beginning and try to figure it out. So if you guys learn nothing else from this tutorial, which is very, very possible, I understand that. This has been a little confusing. And I've done this tutorial 3 times, so I would dare say that you can't hardly make this any easier, which isn't saying much. So anyways, if you guys learn nothing else, Learn the usefulness of frames. Even when you think you don't need them, or you think you're not going to want them, or you think you know what's going on in your project, they can help tremendously. So just use them whenever you possibly can. Alright, so now for the big test. We're going to go back to our 3D view. And we're going to look at it. Uh-oh. We have a problem. We have mixed it with our snow. Of course we've mixed it with our snow. Of course. I did forget that part. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my node editor. Okay, this should be pretty easy to fix. Hopefully my screen capture is catching back up so that you guys aren't staring at a weird blank screen while I talk about things that you're supposed to be doing. Okay, hopefully it's back. So, obviously this is not being affected by, or I mean it's going over our snow, and we don't want it to go over our snow. So there should be a pretty easy way to solve that, and it's going to be with a mix RGB node. So add color mix RGB. Plug that in. Let's just bring these back a little bit. So there's our mix RGB, and this is our snow. So let's plug in our snow to the factor value, and we're going to plug this into the bottom, and we're going to make this white. Right like that. So now we're getting noise textures down at the bottom. The black part where we colored in our snow is right there at the top, which is colored white now. So we should be set. We should be fixed. Okay, so back to our 3D view. Yay! Ta-da! We did it! Woohoo! So obviously this could definitely still use some tweaking. I mean, we could add in some more noise textures, or like I said, like a Musgrave texture, Voronoi texture, something like that, to make those grass patches be just a little bit more random. I mean, right now they almost kind of look like polka dots or something, but you get the idea of what I'm going for here, which is basically we have 3 different materials in one material for one object, which is a complex material. So we took 3 different things. We took the snow, the rocks, and the grass, and we mixed them, and we mixed them in 2 different ways. We mixed them with Vertex colors, we mixed them with a noise texture. These techniques are incredibly useful. You will use them a lot in a lot of different projects. So if you don't learn too much from this tutorial, if you couldn't follow along, you had a hard time, or you just, I don't know, didn't feel like it, you just listened to me ramble on about nothing, I don't know, but the frames are important when making materials, so keep that in mind always. And you have to learn how to make complex materials just using one basic material. So the other way to do this, another way to do a material like this, would be to actually go through and select vertices on this object that we've created, our mountain, to select vertices and assign it a brand new material, and create 2 separate materials, or 3 separate materials, I guess, for this, which would be the grass, snow, and the rocks, and then do it that way. The problem is that it's not very uniform. It's not going to look smooth. It's going to take you a lot of extra time. So it's very important to learn how to mix these sorts of things together, how to get full control over what you're doing with materials. Hopefully, I taught you guys enough today that you can do a little bit of this on your own. I mean, even just the painting, the Vertex colors, is incredibly useful to just get control of where you want certain things to happen in your material. We did that by hand. We selected the things that we wanted to look like snow. We selected this part that we wanted a large patch of grass. And then there's also the way that we did it with the sort of procedural way of mixing in these patches of grass with patches of rock by using a noise texture. And you could mix multiple textures. You could mix a lot of different things to really make this randomized. And it's important to learn these things because every material is made the same way. Every material uses something close, something similar. It's going to use something. Actually, you know what? Let me just show you. Let me go to my node editor. It's probably going to take it a second for my video capture software to catch back up. Yada yada yada. You get the idea. Da 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 da. Wait a couple seconds. Wait a couple seconds. Hopefully it catches back up. Catching back up. Catching back up. Okay, hopefully it's caught back up. So, this is obviously our rocks. This is the rock material. I've created this material by using multiple noise textures. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 noise textures. And I just keep mixing them over and over again. Here's a mix RGB node. Here's another mix RGB node. This is mixing 1 and 2. This is mixing 1, 2, and 3. Then the color ramp is going out, or this last one's going to a color ramp, which is really diluting it down a little bit. That's going to a mix RGB. That's going to a mix RGB. I mean, I'm just mixing it over and over and over and over and over again, and I'm adding in bump maps, and I'm adding in color corrections, and I'm adding in math nodes. I just keep adding things, more things to it to make these textures bend to my will to do exactly what I want them to do. And once you do a few of these textures, like I urge you to get out there and just make materials. Just find tutorials to make these textures or these materials. Or just copy this one, you know, go through where I said to pause the video and just copy this step for step. Even if you don't know what some of these are or what some of these are doing, don't be afraid to just copy it. Just copy it. Because eventually at some point you're going to get curious. You're going to be curious enough to try and figure out what's doing what. And you'll click your little preview box over here, and maybe you're curious as to what it looks like right here. So you'll plug this into the diffuse, and you'll look at your preview, and you'll see exactly what's happening at that section of your node editor. And you just keep doing it over and over and over again, and you'll start to see that every material you make has a lot of these same elements. Let's go down here to my snow. My snow is a little less complex. This is basically just 3 shaders with a Fresnel, with a math node. That's the color. The color's real nice and easy. But this one down here, we have 2 noise textures, 2 math nodes, 1 math node, another math node. That's just what's creating the bump for the snow. I mean, it's real easy. It's real simple. And at each section, you just kind of figure out what each of these things is doing and how to make it do exactly what you want it to do. You just have to play with it, and you have to keep doing it over and over and over again until eventually you get the hang of it. You know, maybe a few months ago, I was really struggling with materials. I always thought I was at least mildly okay with materials. You just add in like an image texture, like I did up here, add in an image texture, and then you can like bump map it, gloss it, and then you're done. And that's a material. But there's so much more to materials that you can do. And I sat myself down and I made myself make 30 brand new materials, and it took me about 3 months to do. And that's the file that's available at my website, caseyunderhill.com. There are 30 materials. Almost all of them are procedural, which means you do not need unwraps, you don't need texture images. You just plop it onto your object and it works. And it's lovely. It's lovely. So the other day, I was making a crossbow. Or I should say it was not a crossbow, it was a compound bow. Somebody requested that I make one for a tutorial. And so I was in there fooling around with it, messing around, seeing if I could make a tutorial out of it. and I got to the very end where I had to add a material, and I thought, what's a good material for a compound bow? I thought, okay, probably some sort of camouflage. So I went to Google and looked up pictures of camouflage, found different types of it, and within about 30 minutes I had set up like 4 different Musgrave textures and a bunch of math nodes, and I had color ramps, and I was just mixing it all together, a couple different colors, different shades of greens and browns, and like I said, 30 minutes. It was done, and it looked perfect. It looked just like camouflage, and I was shocked. I was amazed that I was able to make something like that, that I was able to figure it out for myself, that I didn't have to go looking online for, you know, a camouflage texture, or find something that somebody else made, or, you know, go to somebody else's tutorial. I didn't have to do that. I just made it myself because I've got to know how nodes work, and the more I use them, the more I understand them, the more I'm understanding, you know, in these mix RGBs, the difference between maybe a darkness or a subtract, or dodge, burn, saturation. You have to use them. You have to keep using them. So, sorry I went on a rant there. Got a little off topic. Anyways, I really, really, really hope that this helps you guys. I hope that you guys learn a little bit about nodes, that you guys learn a little bit more about materials. Modeling is super important, but you can make the best model in the world, and it's still not going to look right if you don't put on a good material. Materials can make or break an image. It's everything. It's everything in your image. You know, compositing helps your image. Modeling, I mean, there's such small, little, mundane objects that can be made amazing with materials. Just a small rubber ball or something that you can just make it look realistic and amazing, CG, with just using materials. It's so super important, and I know that it can be daunting and confusing, but I just hope you guys stick in there, you stick with it, and you just keep practicing. So if you guys have any questions, I try to help everybody as much as I can. So just leave a comment below my video if you do have any questions. And thank you guys for watching.